Scotland, by the people, for the people. This video is a consideration of how would Scotland run itself from the point of view of its legislature, its parliament, should it become independent, and the people of the country wanted to include the power of the claim of right, our ancient constitution, and the sovereignty of the people into this future parliament. I'm going to do 2 slides first to set the scene before I proceed to answer the points about a legislator. Well before Scotland was founded in 845 AD, the Celtic people of Scotland had a set of laws now called the Dúchras laws, which were horizontal, not hierarchical, and the people and the rulers worked together in harmony with the land, and as the time went on, these laws became written. So much so that by the time we came to 1286, there was an organisation called the Guardians of the Realm, which was people from different walks of life, and that existed until 1552, when it became permanent legislatively within the Scottish Parliament. Backing this up, in 1310, a declaration of the clergy said that the people in Scotland are sovereign, not the monarch. The monarch is there by the consent of the people, and the people can, if unhappy, remove the monarch. Likewise, in 1320, at the Declaration of Arbroath, this was repeated. And then the Guardians of the Realm, which were made permanent in 1552, did in 1592 up until 1707, through an act called the Act of Salvo, allowed them to be within the debating chamber and in the Scottish Parliament to ensure that the politicians met the needs of the people. There's a lot to this and a lot to understand. The 5 red boxes you see here are videos which I've created over the years that explains these. So if you want to come back to this slide and take a note of those, you can look at them and find them in YouTube. The Scottish Parliament, as it now is, was founded in 1999. But it's not a Scottish Parliament in the sense that it does not use Scottish laws, it does not adhere to the Scottish Constitution. These are all live acts today. The Scottish Parliament was created by an English law, created in 1689, where the people are not sovereign, but the sovereign, the King of England, and the Parliament of London are supreme, and the Scottish Parliament is there by consent of London. Indeed, when a member of the Scottish Parliament takes up a new job there, if he's been elected in or she's been elected in, this is the oath. I do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to law, so help me God. The according to law is English law superimposed on Scotland. However, the Scots laws do exist, and the Scottish Constitution is within the 1707 Treaty of Union. The people in the Scottish Parliament could, if they wanted to, use those Scottish laws. But instead, what they have is a part-time Parliament in the sense that it doesn't run everything, that all its money, no matter what, is controlled by London, and it only manages some aspects of the country, and there's many reserved matters still controlled by London. It includes an altered voting system. It's a proportional representation system altered so that it's nearly impossible for nationalist members of Parliament to get a majority, and it ignores the sovereign laws of Scotland. There's 2 real possibilities for a sovereign people's parliament and legislature. We can amend what we have, And we can look at Switzerland, who are the only country on earth at the moment that actually has a true people's sovereignty. Scotland had one up until 1707 when we were colonised. So let's look at modifying the Scottish system first. The Scottish Parliament today has a First Minister and Executive, which works with the Parliament, and the Parliament has 73 constituency seats, which are first past the post, and 56 regional seats. In the future Parliament, I think everyone will agree, it should be a true proportional voting system, so that you don't get a stupid situation now where 35% of the MSPs, if they win lots of the first past the post votes, actually can run Parliament. So if you had 38% in the future, you'll only get 38% of the MSPs, which is correct. The First Minister and the Executive develop proposed legislation which goes to the Parliamentary Council Office, which drafts a draft law. That is then evaluated, and there's a first step in public constitution. There's feedback, and then there's a second public consultation if needed, if it's complex. And then it finally goes to a third stage, which, when it's correct, is put towards the members of the Parliament to vote on it. They can then go back and forward, but eventually it becomes law, or an amended law. So taking this further, that's the same image in that square red box as you've just seen on the previous slide. But government in Scotland isn't just at Holyrood. You need a head of state if we were an independent country. Most people think of the head of state as being either a monarch, which we haven't had in Scotland since 1707, or it actually is a republic and we have a voted-in head of state. But there's a third option, which I'll come to when I explain what Switzerland has. But we have councils. They are an elected body. And there's no feedback to a council, to the Scottish Parliament. They have to obey the laws, although they can create bylaws locally. Moving on again, so that's the same slide. Now, to make this chamber a people's chamber, a sovereign chamber, what we could do is create a members' chamber. I've said 64, that's simply 2 people per current council area. And it has a chair which would properly rotate every year. And it has an administration. And these people, our job is to uphold the claim of right, which would be updated to make a modern constitution for the people in Scotland. So what they do when laws are created in the political house is that they approve or reject all laws, if not compliant with sovereignty of the people, ensuring due benefit for the people within law. And those 2 chambers work together. First of all, when new laws are created in point 1 here, it can't become law until the People's Chamber agree it with the political chamber. When the Parliamentary Council Office create a draft law, they must notify the People's Chamber so they know what's happening. And the People's Chamber administratively and members can follow it through the assessment and evaluation cycle and putting their input in so that by the time it's finished in the political house, there's no hold up because it's already been assessed, but then it gets a vote in the People's Chair and a vote in the other Parliament. So laws must be passed by both chambers to become live. That is one idea for a sovereignty chamber, where the people ensure that the sovereignty as created in an updated and modern claim of right protects the rights of the people. I'm now going to go on to Switzerland and then come back to the slide you've just seen. Switzerland has a really democratic system. It has a national council which are 200 political members that are elected proportionally, and they represent the population of the whole country. They also have a council of states. So there's 46 members here. So there's 2 for each canton. A canton, think of it as a council. And a half canton's a small area, say a town. And that's known collectively as the Federal Assembly. And each law must be approved by both houses, similar to what I've proposed for a future Scottish Parliament. At the canton level, they call it a parliament, make local laws and a local constitution in compliance with the federal constitution. Likewise, some have a municipal level for large towns. So there's a 3-tier government structure. On top of this, there is direct democracy. The public can hold the supreme power within the right to challenge any law passed by Parliament. The 50,000 signature referendum allows them to amend a law that's been created. Alternatively, a referendum over 100 votes can stop a law completely or initiate a new cycle of assessment to see what happens. The Federal Assembly can actually, if the proposal within the referendum goes against what is good for the safety of the defence of the country or some other international law, they have the right to come back to the people and sort it out. Laws can be proposed by the Federal Council above and by the people within the cantons. So the parliamentary members in cantons, just like this it would be in Scotland, the councils could feed new laws into the main parliament. The United Assembly meet jointly to elect the Federal Council, the Chancellor and all federal judges. There's also a Members' Parliament that are not professional politicians that hold other jobs but are part of the legislative procedure. That's the same slide again. So I'm now going to talk about the Federal Council. The Federal Council is in effect the head of state. It's a 7-member executive branch that is the head of Switzerland. They act as a single body and make decisions jointly. There is no single president. The 7 members each head a federal department. So the 7 members of the Federal Council run a Department of State, like our Home Office, Foreign Office and so on. And those 7 members, are put into place and votes from both houses of the Federal Assembly, not by the majority political party, but by all the House, both assemblies, both rooms, decide who runs each head of department, and those people form the Federal Council, which is the head of state. It rotates annually, so that the head, if you like, a single person, is the first among equals, and they take a year each. The councillors may have political views and disagree with things, but they must still not say that publicly, and they must work as one voice. I wasn't going to show this, but if this is the Federal Council, and the process of creating a new law starts here, and it has a draft, and it goes through a constitution process to check it's in line with the Swiss constitution. And then you get a draft, and the Commission drafts it, and then there's a bill. And it goes through different steps to become law, very similar to what we have in Scotland or England. But the difference is, you have these bodies here, the people can have a referendum and put in it for a new law to the Federal Council. The parliamentary people in the cantons can come up here and commission a modification. Some bills don't go through the process if it's a small adjustment. It goes straight to implementation. There's a lot on there to read. I won't go into the detail, take too long, but if you're interested, come back and have a look. So the main differences from the Swiss legislature to Scotland's that I proposed is the head of state is a committee of 7 called the Federal Council. The Federal Council leader rotates annually and can, as an individual, on certain events, represent the country. Each Federal Council member runs a state department elected by both houses of the Federal Assembly and not by the coalition or top political party. Each law must be approved by both houses. Both houses meet to appoint the Federal Council, Chancellor and judges. The people can hold a referendum and with 50 or 100,000 votes propose legislative change. Members of the canton or municipal parliaments are not usually full-time, but they can be. So this is me back to the slide I had earlier for what I was proposing. As you can see, it's very similar in some ways to what the Swiss have. You have the political chamber and you have the people's chamber. The head of state could be similar to Switzerland. I think psychologically that would be a massive thing for this country to do, to take the power away from the majority political party or the political coalition to appoint the heads of each department. I still think it's a great thing for democracy, and it'd be worth actually considering. The councils in the Swiss system can actually create and amend laws and have a feed direct in to the parliamentary electoral cycle. The head of state, as I've just mentioned, can be a group of people voted in by both chambers, and there can be a referendum. So that's the difference. And that system would allow the people of Scotland to ensure that the rights for the use of land and the environment could be under their control as per the Constitution, as per the modern claim of right. An opinion. Could Scotland reintroduce a legislative parliament where the people are given their sovereign right, their right to the protection within the claim of right and the UN Human Rights Charter, and one that is much more democratic than the Westminster model installed today at Holyrood, which is based on the English Bill of Rights and has no place in Scotland, an independent Scotland. Could we do this? Of course we could. It could be considered and possibly implemented as part of the process that creates Scotland's written constitution from the ancient constitution in the claim of right, and make sure that the people that used to be known as the guardians of the realm are in control of law. Not every law, but just to make sure that the law adheres to the Constitution. We could actually do this now. We could actually, via Constitutional Convention of the People and as many different people within groups within Scotland, we could come together and look at a future constitution, and we could make sure that Scotland has its sovereign people back again. A lovely dream. Is there a will to do this? Here's a personal view about what should also happen in the country to do with politics and certain controls. These are very personal views and you may disagree completely, but I think they would enhance our future. If you listen to politics, whether it's on a talk show, on the hustings, debates in chambers, articles in newspapers, you will know that many of our politicians haven't got a clue about what life is. And the reason for that in many cases is that they got to where they are by starting helping at the low levels within the party and working themselves up to get put forward for election. Or they came in via university and got put forward for election. The reason this is necessary, I'll give you an example. Prior to 2016 and the Brexit referendum, a very senior member of the UK Parliament made a right faux pas about trade because he did not know that in England the majority of the trade comes through Dover. Where has he been alive? Where does he live? And it's that problem, the lack of ability to assess information, to process things and think about how you manage things, that is missing from many of our politicians because they haven't lived in the real world. A party should only be funded by the state. This stops lobby groups, money in the back pocket, free holidays in Antigua, and all the rest of it. It stops and reduces corruption. That all media ownership should only be in Scotland from people that live full-time in Scotland and pay taxes in Scotland, with Scotland being their primary address. Perhaps they should also be Scottish citizens. In the UK at the moment, lots of our mainstream media is American-owned. How often do you hear about other parts of the world? You hear about America. You actually have anti-socialist tendencies in most of these newspapers because Americans hate socialists, or the majority do. We should make sure we have digital sovereignty. That means all software must be created and originate in Scotland, or at least the EU if we join the EU. The reason is in 2018, America created a law which allowed the CIA, NSA and any federal government department to go to any of the big tech owners like Microsoft, Meta, Google and so on, and get them to provide information from any server anywhere in the world in any country. Because of this, due to this being weaponized recently, the EU is busy removing big tech, American big tech, because of digital sovereignty. You don't want a country that is no longer an ally and is an adversary to actually have access to your information. All essential services should be monopolies. And finally, Scots history has never been taught, full stop. It's important in the future as a free country that our children get taught the history before 1707 and the colonial history with nothing held back after 1707. It takes time for children to get to a position where they're voted in as elected officials. In that interim period, anybody in public office or in the civil service should have to attend a course, don't know how long that would be, a week or two, so that they understand the claim of right, they understand the Scottish Constitution, they understand our history, so that when they manage the country, hopefully in a structure similar to what I proposed in this video, they will understand and not blinkered by the English Bill of Rights. Thank you. That's the end of my talk. Over the years, I've made quite a few videos. My YouTube channel is at Robert Anderson 9116. If you put that in YouTube search bar, you'll find all my videos, or you can simply key in the name of the video you wish. I've also got YesTube videos in addition to the history videos. And this is my plan for the future. I'm next going to do problems caused by Brexit. A few months ago I created one called The Scam That Is Brexit. This is a follow-up. But I'd also wanted to show the Liberation Scotland's update in March this year. It's a year ago since Liberation Scotland put the document into the United Nations Decolonisation Committee to try and prove that Scotland's a colony of England. But I'm not going to do this video now because Liberation Scotland created one themselves. If you go into YouTube and type in Liberation Scotland's UN Update March 2026, you'll get a 55-minute discussion with 4 people that brings you up to date. I'd also planned to do a second, for me, talk on pensions. I did one 6 years ago. But I'm not going to do that either now because the Scottish Currency Group, scg.scot, have done just that work very recently. If you go in there into their website for the downloads, you'll find 3 downloads to do with how pensions would be administered and run in Scotland's future. This one here that I've listed, the URL, is a good few pages and it explains in English how it could work. So my next video is the problems caused by Brexit. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to this video. Thank you.